guess. Yesterday I was feeling rotten. I thought if I feel like this tomorrow, there's no way.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, when I got up this morning, I was, if I rest for the rest of the day, I'll be fine, which is the case. I'm fine. I mean, all we're doing is sitting and talking. So,
Yeah.
all that to say is I wouldn't miss it if, unless I'm at death's door. So,
Appreciate that very much.
well, I mean, that's how much this means to me.
It's amazing. And yeah,
It
I've
really
really,
does. I mean, I've said these kinds of things, but they're not just simply. I mean, I know people have a tendency. It's not a criticism, but people have a tendency to say things for whatever reason, and maybe they don't have the full force of a conviction behind it. But I've meant everything I've said about this. There's not been any words said just for the sake of saying them. It's all been absolutely sincere. It really does mean that much to me. So.
I'm so,
If
so glad that, it's been this helpful. And
it has. It's like I said it to you in an email. I guess it's been the last few weeks that years of therapy and 12-step work didn't achieve the results that this has in such a small space of time. I mean, those things had to be done for me to be ready for this,
absolutely so. Yeah, 100%.
but they still did not get the results that this has. And with that in mind,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about something.
Yeah.
The reparenting. I have done all of the major events, which are surprisingly few. They're only just a handful of things from my formative years that have been, that have left their mark.
Yeah.
And once I've done those, and I didn't. It didn't seem to me that I should go back and redo them, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure. Should I be revisiting those and doing those again and again, or is it enough to go through and do each one once? And what's the story there?
Yeah, really good question. So it's more of that it's important to do it with whatever's arising in the moment. So you don't necessarily have to go back and just, drill through the same situation because you got to remember when we do this, it's about really it's like a solid metaphor for working with what's here in this moment. So if in this moment you're having a situation where it's, tying back to some form of your starting point that comes from a situation that happened when you were 6, then we work with that right now in a way where you go back to be with that 6-year-old Darrell and talk to him and comfort him and all of that. But really, it's all happening right now in this moment. So there isn't as much utility in going back and doing it when you're not experiencing any of that right now.
I see. Okay.
There we run a little bit of a risk with this because we don't want to keep using it to reinforce stories about you and your past
Right.
that. And so doing it that way could potentially run the risk of pulling you in that direction where it's reinforcing, oh, I remember that time when, and I remember that, and now I have to go through and clear this one because this is part of my history and all of that. It's more when something comes up, like if you're feeling, if you're having, you okay?
Yeah, I just had to get in a different position for this chair to not cause me to sit in an awkward, uncomfortable position. So
I get that.
I don't think there's such a thing as a comfortable office chair anywhere on the planet.
Yeah, no, no. I think they're there to keep you like alert and agonized. You're doing your job and not, just lazing off to sleep. Um, yeah. So if you were having a situation right now where, I mean, let's say you were in an argument with Susanna and something comes up that's like you're having a disagreement about something and something comes up that's like a clear trigger to something that happened, something where you feel like you are not okay to speak your mind or that you're um, you have to be it like say it brings up the whole thing about like the inadequacy, like something about, there's something you that's the problem in this situation.
Right.
Then you take that in that moment or just after you're out of the situation. And then you can go back to the times that come up. So like you feel what it feels like in the body right now to feel inadequate in some way, to feel like I'm the problem in this situation. Feel how that feels in the body, feel the sensations of it, and then see, what this reminds me of. If it reminds you of a specific time when your mother said something where somebody else said something to you, and it's like, oh, I remember feeling this before. Then go back to that time. And then in that moment, you can be with that little Darrell who experienced that feeling of being the problem that needed to be removed from the house, or that, wasn't okay as he was, and then do the reassuring and the loving and the comforting, all of that. And you'll feel that manifestation right here, right now, as that's changing, because you're simultaneously doing it for little Darrell, but you're really doing it for current 2024 Darrell. So it's all because it's relevant and right here in the moment that we work with it.
Okay. Well, that brings up two other things then. One is there are times where something will happen and there will be internal disturbance, and in trying to find out what that reminds me of, I just can't get to it.
It's okay.
Okay.
So in that times, then you just sit with the sensations. You can dialogue with the sensations and ask, do you need something? Do you have a message for me? Something like that. See if something comes up from that. If so, follow that train of thought or train of expression. If it doesn't, it's okay. Just be with the sensation. You can bring the love and the compassion just to that sensation, because we don't want any of this to go away. If we do any of this with the posture of, I'm doing this to get rid of this, I don't want to feel like this, we've already, we've lost the thread there. We're doing it so that we can have equanimity with the fact that this is part of our experience. There is part of this experience that feels sensation in the body every time it feels like it's a problem, or it's, there's something wrong with it. Okay. Can you have the acceptance of the fact that that is the reality of this situation in this moment? Be with the sensation, allow it to have its space, recognize that that sensation is not here as a way to harm you or punish you or anything else. It's this protective mechanism that's been there for probably a good portion of your life, that is over, its utility is probably no longer uh, of use. It's something that had a function in the past to steer you in a certain direction to try to keep you safe. Now it just feels more of a torment that you're not listening to it for the sake for the you're not listening to it for the in the I am so garbled today. I'm sorry. The message that it was trying to convey to you is not really getting through. If you're feeling it like, every time I'm in this situation, I just feel like I'm a problem and I want to get out of it and I have to do something to escape it. That wasn't the sensation's message to begin with. It was that there's something in this kind of a situation that feels uncomfortable and you need to avoid it in some way. But you can't necessarily avoid every situation. You can't, right? You can't just run away from it. I've used the metaphor before that, like, if you have that anxiety feeling, um, if we have the kind of response where our response to danger is to flee, if you're stuck in an elevator and you get that response, it's a useless thing in that moment. You literally
Right.
flee, and then that just amps up the anxiety because now I'm trapped. I'm feeling the urge to flee, and I literally have no place to go. So it's one of those things where the bodily sensations are telling you to do something that you can't necessarily do, and you're no longer interpreting them as that. It's just, this is this feeling is now my feeling of being inadequate. This is my feeling of being a problem. And this is the feeling that I get that makes me really uncomfortable with the thought that I am a problem. But it was a defense to keep you safe in the past, which is now being taken as a symbol for your the discomfort of being the way that you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. That's more or less a new idea. So I'm just kind of having to take that in.
Mm.
I mean, I understand it. It's just it seems like it needs to kind of process a little bit.
Of course.
There was another thing about that. There was a second thing. Let me see. Well, it was about the reparenting and doing that, and now I think I've lost it. So maybe it'll come back. I don't know.
Hopefully.
And not that it was tremendously important, but it was something that it was in certain situations questions would come up, and there was some uncertainty around that. So I'll just have to let that go. And I mean, if it comes up again later, which it probably will, I can just shoot you an email, I guess.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll come up even during the talk.
Well, yeah, that would be ideal. But I know how Murphy's law works around forgotten thoughts or questions, ideas. So it'll probably show up sometime after midnight.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not in any hurry to make for this process to happen in a particular time frame or anything like that. So don't misunderstand what I'm about to ask. I truly am willing to and comfortable with just letting it take its own time, because I mean that's what it's going to do anyway. I mean it's not like it's not like there's somebody sitting here who can manufacture a result or an outcome.
Yeah.
But kind of watching and paying attention to things over the last couple of weeks, something has obviously changed in the last year. And I mean, over the course of since last July, things have changed. It's not been all at once. There have been things that have happened at various points in time. And while it's without question that there's not a enduring personal self, we've talked about it, that there's something that's still kind of giving that sense some weight or some traction. And if I've understood everything that we've discussed in recent months correctly, it seems to kind of hinge on what we call the second fetter, emotional, I guess what I would call emotional identification. I mean, that's how I would label what you've described to me.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm wondering is, and it's going to sound this way no matter how much I say it, that's not what I'm looking to ask, but it's going to sound it no matter what I say, is that is there anything that can be done to kind of, I don't know, I guess, facilitate the process or aid it? And I think I understand what's driving it is the fact that there's this thought that says it would be nice to be free of this burden. And it's going to happen in its own time, but I always keep coming back to that, is what can be done to get out from underneath all of this stuff,
You're doing it. I mean, the truth of it is the reparenting stuff, the being aware of what the emotions actually are is so helpful, because well, let's ask. When you say like the burden of the emotional weight, right? Give me some specifics. What are we actually talking about?
it's harder to pin down than I thought it was going to be. when you asked that question, there was a sense of, okay, like that question, the answer was just going to just come right out.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can,
It's a very Bodhidharma moment there.
huh?
A very Bodhidharma moment, where the disciple said, please pacify my mind. And said, bring your mind here and show it to me.
Right.
There it is. It's pacified. Uh,
That's funny. I would have never recognized it as such if you hadn't pointed it out. That's good. I suppose it has to do with a couple of things. One is these, I guess they're emotional reactions to various things. For instance, texts, which, I feel like I'm thinking more now about there are people watching this, so they should know that's my daughter, Tuesday, who prefers to go by the name Tex. Her boyfriend, if there's a time where it's appropriate, I will lay out the whole sort of tale. But for now, I'll just say it's been a concern over a period of years, because their paths crossed when they were still in elementary school. So this has been kind of ongoing for a while. And there was a point in time when there was this, I'll use the word equanimity. I don't know that that's really appropriate because it seemed like more than that. It seemed like, and this may be just a different way of saying the same thing, it seemed like there was this acceptance of it, this non-resistance to it. And it showed up out of nowhere, and it was there for a while, and then recently that all just kind of evaporated. I mean, just out of nowhere, all at once. It wasn't something that slowly started to creep back in. It just all of a sudden one day, like, here it is again. Like, I thought I got out from underneath this crap. So I'll go ahead.
Well, what is there if the equanimity is not there? What emotional turbulence is happening around?
There's this resentment and, man, I don't know what to call the rest of it, but there's something else there with regards to him, and I don't know how to articulate that. Resentment's the only one that I can easily point to. I guess not frustration. I guess, you know what? I think it is, maybe frustration is the word, because it has something to do with the fact that I can't do anything about it. I can't manage it. There have been a couple of different times in the last few years where I really thought the situation was going to resolve itself and we were going to see the end of them.
Yeah, it sounded like it a couple of times.
Yeah, and he just wouldn't be a part of our lives anymore. He was going to go his own way for whatever reason, and then that didn't happen. So I guess there is that sense of whatever we call that. I don't know what to call that, but that sense of not being able to get the satisfaction of seeing that situation dissolve, go away.
Is it the lack of satisfaction or lack of resolution, or is it the lack of control and lack of autonomy in the situation, that you can't control what he does, whether he's in your life or not?
Mm-hmm.
You also are finding that, because you can't control how your daughter sees him or
Mm-hmm.
her reactions to him. So had you had equanimity with that portion of it during that period when you did seem to have it?
Yes. I mean, it really was. It was very much, there wasn't any kind of reaction there. I'd go to pick up Tex from school, and they're always waiting there together at the front of the school. and I would see him, and there wouldn't be any kind of reaction. There wouldn't be any kind of
Yeah.
sort of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all gone. There was just, this is how it is, and it's not a problem. It's not a threat. It's just, this is what's happening right now. And it was really nice.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was. But nothing specifically changed with him or your daughter from then to the lack of equanimity.
Not that I can put my finger on. I mean, it really was when it showed back up a few weeks ago. It was sort of a disappointment. Wow, this. I thought this was gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we can't get hung up on uh this is done now. I'm never gonna feel that again. It's over. Because we never know. We
Yeah,
never
good point.
know. It's just recognizing when it's not here in the moment, we recognize it. When it's here, we recognize it. Again, there's an undertone there of also wanting it to go away. Like what,
You're
you have
right.
we're doing this for the sake of it going away.
Yeah.
But I would say it's better to get in contact with the fact that there is a part of your experience which reacts a certain way to the concept of lack of control. There's something here which does not like the feeling of being out of control.
Yeah.
So can we get in contact with that and see what that feels like and what it needs? Can you bring up that sensation now?
I can, but it's very mild in comparison to the actual feeling that comes up when there's an actual set of circumstances that generate it.
And if you picture like the last time that you had that strong reaction when thinking about him or seeing him,
Say that again?
yeah. Can you picture like the last time that you had that strong reaction thinking or about him or seeing him?
A little bit. Again, it doesn't have the kind of felt intensity that it does in the actual moment.
Yeah. In the moment, does it feel like if you could do something about it, you would?
It's interesting that you should ask that because I'd never considered that before, and I'm not entirely sure I would because I don't know what the outcome of that would be.
Mm,
That could go any number of ways.
good. So what is this feeling that's in you actually driving you to do? If you don't know if you would actually take action if you had suddenly the, miraculous God control to just make people behave however you wanted.
What is
What?
it pushing me to do?
Hmm.
Well, first of all, I'm thinking about it in the larger sense rather than just the situation with him.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about it in terms of the fact that while fortunately the drive to control things does not manifest as frequently or as intensely as it used to, because it used to be a really big issue and something that I'm pretty sure made other people uncomfortable.
Mm.
It still happens, so I'm thinking about it in the broader sense, and I don't know if for our purposes right here, right now, if that's appropriate, or you want me to stay focused on this situation with him.
Right now, focus on either him or another situation that it brings up, whatever brings up the most sensation for you right now that's in
Okay.
that control field.
Okay. Okay. Again, it's not as intense as it would be in the situation, but I can conjure up some of it.
Good. So feel into it as much as possible. And first of all, where exactly is it located in the body?
Kind of from here down and along the center line
Mhm.
into, I guess, the abdomen.
Good.
That's it. fairly narrowly felt. It's just sort of in here.
And is it, can you describe what kind of sensation it is?
It feels kind of trapped.
Hmm.
It feels like needing or wanting to do something, but not being able to do it, which of course makes sense.
It does.
But it leads to feeling trapped. And it's interesting because there have been times that something will come up that provokes this feeling. And Susanna has said that I seem like a caged animal.
Hmm. So feel that trapped feeling. Just allow it to be there. And then you can ask it, does this remind you of a time in the past? Does this trapped, caged animal feeling remind you of something?
Yeah, I can't get a specific fix on it. Just sort of just this general, vague sort of sense about something pertaining to my.
Are you there? Sorry, you cut out for a minute. You said
Yeah.
a vague sense pertaining to my, and then you cut out.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was this sort of vague, very general sense of something in my grade school years between me and my mom and me being angry, my temper, because that came up a lot. I mean, a lot. It was a pretty regular thing. But I can't, what it was about, or if it was about one thing, or if it was about situations that were all similar over time, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. It's like I said, it's vague. It's very general.
Let's even ask into that because I think there are two separate but probably related interesting bits here.
Okay.
One is this feeling of being trapped and not being able to do something that you feel like you want to do. The other is this persistent rage that was an issue as a child and perhaps beyond. But that rage is not a core fundamental way of being, right? That
Right.
rage is a defense from something else. So was that rage coming up because there was this feeling of helplessness or lack of control as a child that
You can tell me if this sounds right to you or not, but when listening to you talk just now, what I thought of was as a kid, and of course, I mean, what kid would not resent being spanked? I really resented the hell out of being spanked.
of course, yeah.
And especially considering that sometimes it could show up in some really over the top ways, like being spanked with spatulas or big leather belts. And I didn't understand it at the time. I can, looking back at it, recognize that there are times it was done out of anger.
Yeah.
It wasn't done to sincerely, genuinely try to discipline somebody. It was done out of anger. I'm frustrated with this kid. Why won't this kid behave? Whatever. And at one point in time, I declared to both of my parents, "You spank me again, and you're going to pay." I can't remember exactly what I said, but that was a general idea. And that's what happened. And from then on, when they spanked me, or it looked like a situation was coming up where they would, I'd put holes in walls. I would destroy things. I would go nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I didn't recognize it at the time, but that's what it was about. It was an attempt to try to control what was being done to me. Like, you do this to me, I'm going to do that to you.
Exactly. Yet rage is not a primary childhood emotion that you just feel for no reason.
Right?
It's a defense from something else. It's a reaction to something. And if you're in a situation where you're being physically abused and you feel like you don't have control of your life and control the situations and any other number of other things that's there, rage is very likely one of those ways that you're going to learn to deflect from feeling that real discomfort of being abused and powerless. It's giving you that sense of power back where here I am. I can punch through a wall. I can
Yeah.
do to you what you do to me, or some version of it.
Right.
And so I think the key here is, again, not to vilify the fact that you were experiencing rage back then, because it was a natural, justified reaction to an unfair, unhealthy situation.
Thank you for saying that because I don't know if anyone's ever said that to me before. Maybe they have. I can't recall. But I felt so much incredible shame
Yeah,
over that rage and the things that I would do
yeah,
over the years. And the sad thing was is that it was a means of, like you said, trying to regain control. So I guess we could generally label it as a coping mechanism.
it was a coping mechanism.
And it went on into my 20s and my 30s. I mean, I was really fortunate that, and I don't understand how it happened, and it's not really important, but when I was really in the thick of the 12 step work in my late 30s, had done some really heavy duty inventory work with somebody who was really good. And we touched on things around my mom again. And I truly, in just a moment, the rage was gone. I didn't realize it at the time. I'd had this major insight in that moment, sitting there with the sponsor and doing this work.
Yeah,
But it wasn't until following weeks that I realized that that moment had changed a lot of things because, as a therapist I saw once said, the mercury no longer went to the top of the thermometer. I
yeah,
would get angry, and I would get angry, but it was in reasonable proportion. It wasn't rage, it wasn't yelling, it wasn't throwing things, it wasn't hitting, putting holes in walls or slamming doors. None of that. It was all gone.
yeah, yeah,
But prior to that point in my life, well, even after that change, still, it was just getting angry. Just because I was angry and there had been that association with it, even though I wasn't doing those things anymore, there was still, and really still is to this very day, a lot of shame around it. In fact, there are times I'll get upset. I don't raise my voice. I don't act out at all. But Susanna can tell I'm angry,
yeah,
and she'll ask me what's wrong, and I feel incredible shame, even though the reaction is fully within reasonable limits.
yeah,
Doesn't matter. That shame is still there.
yeah. Yeah, and that's where we go from having that healthy amount of like pro-social shame or pro-social guilt, when we're at a certain age, or when we do anything even as an adult, where I do something, it hurts somebody else, I feel a moment of guilt and remorse about it so that I don't go on and do that again. I've learned something from my experience. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that on that social level. It's when you take that to being this shameful thing where it's talking about you as a person who is deeply shameful and broken because this is who you are and this is how you react and how terrible is that. And then it becomes a whole storyline where you start to take that on as an identifying marker about how and who you are, as opposed to just being a pro-social blip on the thing of, oop, yep, did something, shouldn't have done that, won't do that again. I learned from my mistake and then move on. So now you've because you have that core of shame, that you have this idea about who you are that is in some way fundamentally flawed. There's something, whether it's the rage, the not being in the, always being the problem in the room, whatever it is, because that's in there, anything you have that seems to touch back to that behavior or to something that reminds you of that is going to give you that flare up of shame, because it's being um, a metaphor almost just arose and then it retreated again. But it's like, it's like it doesn't take much for that to be triggered and that little shame light to go off. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you only need to kind of like whisper near the light switch, and it's like blink, blink, here I am, here I am. And so it's recognizing that, it's okay. You have an experience, you feel something in the body. You're not even like expressing anger and yelling out at somebody, but the fact that it shows up is not a shameful thing. The fact that it shows up just means that there's something in the situation that feels uncomfortable, and it's being responded to or reacted to in a way where uh, there is still a not wanting it to be there, but you have toned your actions or your reaction to it down so much from the punching your fist through a wall down to not even raising your voice, but just feeling that there's something in the body. And instead of celebrating that amount of seeing through all of this, need to react and taking it down that much, there's still enough of a glimmer of it being there that it's like, no, that's still shameful. I shouldn't have any of that left.
And there's a connection between that shame and the control, the feeling powerless or helpless, because frequently that's where that sort of anger shows up. I think that's probably one of the most common, what do we call it? One of the most common not situation, but it's the one of the most it's one of the things that is most likely to bring up that sense of anger and the accompanying shame.
Yeah. Yeah. Not surprising. Not surprising at all. So can we get in touch with that feeling of trapped, powerless, lack of control? And feel how that feels. Again, bring up anything to mind that will stimulate this, whether it's like recent thing or whether it's a memory from the past where you felt like that as a kid.
Okay.
So let it kind of build as strongly as possible so you can really get a full sense of how it shows up. Notice where the sensation arises. Notice how it's displaying itself. And ask into it right now, what can I do for you? You can tell it, I see you. It's okay that you're here. What can I do for you? What do you need?
I needed a reliable ally.
Mm,
That's what it needed.
yeah. So can you be that reliable ally now?
Yeah.
Instead of vilifying it and vilifying yourself for still having any sort of sensation that arises in the body, can you be that reliable, responsible older ally who's going to take its side and allow it to be there and to comfort it and to give it what it needs? And what does it actually need? What does it need that ally to provide for it?
I don't know how to sum it up in. I don't know how to sum it up succinctly.
It's okay.
I can answer your question by saying I'll throw a couple of situations out. One was when I was around 10 or 11, and I had worked really hard to come up with money to buy a book that I wanted. And the book was hardbound, $25, which was a lot for an 11-year-old to come up with at that
Yeah,
point in time.
totally.
And my mom got angry at me one day. We were we were traveling by car to somewhere in the city, and she pulled over, and I was doing something to annoy my younger sister, and spanked the living daylights out of me with the book, which of course, completely destroyed the spine. Now the book was ruined.
Wow.
And, there was a sense of well, just helplessness, powerlessness.
Mm.
This could happen and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't stop it.
Right.
And then fast forward some years to I was in high school, and every morning I would show up, and every morning before first period, three guys who were in my neighborhood would be waiting for me by my locker and would do any number of things to me. And my parents, I don't want to be too hard on them because I don't know what they did or did not do, but it seemed to me at the time like they didn't go as far as they needed to. They made some effort. They tried a few things, but it didn't work. And there's a whole long story associated with it. But for right now, I'll just leave it to say that things turned out pretty badly for me because of the fact that they weren't able to do something about the fact that I was getting beaten up, locked in a locker, and a whole range of typical bully things that were being done to me daily, every day. Count out like clockwork. And, once again, helpless, powerless, you know.
So sorry.
So,
Can you feel that sensation of powerless now that you felt in those situations? And just feel the raw sensation in the body, that raw energy of the moment. You can picture yourself in the situation as an adult next to younger Darrell. And you can be there to protect him because you have your back. You don't have to be put in a locker by some childhood bullies. You don't have to be spanked by anyone. You are fully capable now of standing up for yourself and taking care of your needs. So you can do that for him too. You can be there and you can put your hand on his shoulder. You can keep him safe. Importantly, you can reassure him that it has nothing to do with him. He did not bring this behavior on himself. And you can give him all the love with that reassurance that he didn't feel back then. Do you feel that you have your back?
yeah.
Whatever happens in life, you've got it. You're not trapped. It's important that we don't bypass the feeling of being powerless with the non-dual sort of realization that there is no one to control or have agency. We want to really feel our sense of power, to feel our sense of control and stability and groundedness before we give that up.
That's interesting. I wasn't expecting you to say that, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah.
Because I've never been able to shake that sense that that moment I refer back to so often in last July when it became so utterly clear that there wasn't someone here or anywhere else, that along with that came this sense of that there's no one controlling anything, that things are just in motion. It's sort of like everything's a really large billiard table,
Yeah.
and things are just knocking into other things and putting things in motion, and that's it.
And it is actually absolutely true. However, the psychologically or emotionally, that can be it can be a way to if we don't have a complete realization of that every waking moment, then we're still working out of our old trauma centers, basically, where
Right.
you're still experiencing something that feels like you can make a decision, like you can it still feels in daily life like you have control, but it also feels like there are times that you feel powerless and you feel that feeling of helplessness. So as long as that is showing up, then we work with it from that angle.
Yeah,
If
that makes sense.
if at some point that goes away, then we're okay to drop that. But it's a necessary thing at this point because that feeling of powerlessness and that fear of that lack of control can be enough to keep you hooked into the identification of not wanting to fully let go of it.
Say that again.
Yeah, basically, if there's a fear of not having control, which is evidenced by these sensations coming up,
Right.
then then to fully give up the identity and fully give up the control is going to have an element of fear in it, which is holding you back.
Okay, boy, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So we need to heal this lack of fear about having no control. You have to feel like you are absolutely, you have your back, you've got control of the situation, you are there's no hesitation when something happens that you're not going to be okay with it or something else. We don't want that fear of of lack of control to be in the back of the mind.
Well, how do we go from, excuse me, how do we go from cultivating a sense of control and having my own back to being able to let go of that sense and recognize that there isn't any control to have?
It's basically where all of the inquiries that we've been doing in the past, all of the things to show you that you have no actual control, you're not making choices, all of those are still functional and they're helping with that. It's that if there's something which is a resistance to it, this heals that resistance so that all those other inquiries that we've done can really be fully effective.
I see. It's maybe not the most apt description, but it's a way of allowing that hand to release.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Or it's kind of like, okay, again, this was a half-formed metaphor that just started. And I'm not sure. It's something like to the effect of Yeah, no, that's a terrible metaphor. There was like a medicinal metaphor that was showing up where it was like, if you have an ailment and you take a medicine for it, but you're also taking some other medicine which is like contraindicated, which is stopping that medicine from doing its job.
Right?
You want to get rid of that one so that the actual medicine can do its intended job without interference,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, okay. Slightly clearer than it sounded.
Well, it's just, I mean, I understand that it makes sense, but at the same time, there's something about it that on the face of it seems counterintuitive.
I know, I know.
You know?
And we're doing a lot of that. Like with the retreat, there's a lot of the exercises and stuff use mantras like, I have my back, I'm stable, I can, trust myself. It's basically reinforcing the the um the healthy sense of a self that has to be able to continue after seeing through all of the other layers of identification, because otherwise we can run into we can kind of go off the rails. Some people have when they're doing this kind of stuff. If you are somebody, and I don't think you're exactly one of these people, but there are people who haven't developed a healthy sense of self to where they might have never felt a sense of self in their life. And then if they do a lot of this sort of work, it might seem at first like they're already halfway there or most of the way there, but actually they didn't develop a sense of self because there was so much trauma and from some reason that
Hmm.
kept them without any healthy boundaries, without, any sort of feelings of where I begin or end, or that I can stand up for my needs or have needs, or you know that I shouldn't just be a complete doormat or something. And then when we do this sort of thing, you can get into psychiatric issues of depersonalization and derealization, and you can have flare-ups of trauma stuff that hasn't been worked through before because now it doesn't have the defenses that were there. You can have um some people could become very irresponsible with their behavior in different ways because it just seems like, well, there's nobody here, I'm not controlling anything, everything's fine, and then all of the whims just get have their way. So that's why it's useful. Pernilla calls it the self-care for the non-self. And it's setting up that foundation of taking care of the body, going to the dentist, taking care of your finances, being a responsible adult in society where that can maintain even while the structures of self that cause all of the suffering and identification can fall away. But then you still have this being that's able to function and hold down a job and keep a family and all of that stuff. But that has to be there to begin with, and that's why we help reinforce this healthy sense of a self to heal all of that emotional stuff that's keeping you from being able to fully let go, and also to make sure that you're a functional upstanding member of society when everything else falls away.
Okay.
It's different. I don't even know if it's really different, but it seems like it would be different, if you were a monk a, a, a monastery someplace. You only have a certain amount of room in which to operate. You don't really have the responsibilities of a householder or any of those things. So it's a bit different doing it here, where we do need some level of functionality to be able to pay taxes and drive cars and all of those things.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because that's exactly what it was bringing to mind was contrasting that against, somebody who's a monastic and the fact that all of that is just completely given up. You don't handle money, nothing. I mean, your life is just about life there in the monastery, keeping things clean in your practice.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously that has been successful way of getting things done, but obviously not everybody can or will be able to do that.
No. So we
You know,
have to find that middle road of where you can be both open and empty and non-identified in the best possible way, and then also still functional in society.
yeah, and there has to be a way for people to have that, because obviously there are those of us who seek that, we want that, but by the time all of this presented itself, I was already years into a marriage and we had a kid, and I wasn't about to just tell everyone, sorry, bad luck, I gotta go, and do that to them just so that I could seek what I was after.
Absolutely.
Or I got to know briefly a guy a couple of years ago who, with his wife and his two kids, was trying to live as a monastic. And I didn't know him very long, but in the time I knew him, I could tell that this was because he was really trying to live as a monastic, being celibate and all that, which that's fine. If you can do that and it's not a problem for anyone, knock yourself out. But he said things, I picked up on things that it made it very clear that this was disrupting his family life and it was making it difficult for his wife and daughters, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
It's it's tough to do those at the same time if you're trying to do it in the more traditional monastic way.
which is what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we're all about integration in daily life. You know, using the inquiry, using the insights and everything into daily life so that you're still going about everything that you normally do, but you're doing it in a mindful way. You're doing it in a way where you're noticing any of the identification that's happening. You do it in a way where you work with the emotions that come up as they come up. It's all fodder to work with, and it's all happening constantly throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's actually a big benefit to being in life with a family and society that you get to work with all these things. In a monastic environment, some of these things might never show up. You wouldn't have a
Right.
clue that they were there.
And I've actually heard more than just a couple respected monastics say that, express that basic idea that being a householder, living a non-monastic life, but trying to take on this path is full of tremendous benefit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
With that in mind, the question I asked you by email about inquiry,
Hmm.
if I understood your answer, essentially what you were saying is that when it comes to the emotional stuff, that's we don't want to do the inquiry and the non-dual approach to it. We want to deal with that like what we just did here, in the last 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tricky thing about trying to do what we just did when something comes up on my own is I find it pretty much all but impossible to get whatever emotions and whatever feelings are showing up to reveal themselves for what they're pointing to, like what we just did.
Mm.
And if that's the way it is, if that's how it is, then that's fine. But at the same time, if it's possible to do that kind of inquiry or that kind of work on my own, in between the times that we're meeting and talking, I'd like to be able to do that. I mean, is it something that it just has to be cultivated as a skill?
It might get better. Yeah, the more you do it, the more you might find that it just becomes more natural, the kind of dialogue and things will just show up, unaided. If it doesn't, also fine. You can still do it from the standpoint where, I'm just I want to be careful to not have you bypass where you go right to the, there's no one here, there's no problem, there's no, it's just an emotion arising and that sort of thing, and really feel what's there. So if you try and you don't get anything from the dialoguing or the reparenting or any of that sort of thing, then just recognize that the sensation itself is just one sensation out of all of the possible experiences in the room at the moment. Everything that's happening in your space, whether it's in the visual space, the auditory space, the felt sense space, that sensation is only one small aspect of that. So it's like if you had, uh, I don't know, like a vase that you really don't like in the house. Your wife has a vase, it's really annoying, obnoxious looking vase. You just hate it, and every time you walk around the room, it's there, but it's just one thing. It's one part of the entire landscape of the room, right? It's not
Right,
like that one thing is the entirety of your experience. It's just
right.
recognizing that there's one little thing that causes me discomfort in this whole vast panorama of sights and sounds and everything else. And we can have that same experience with the sensation so that we recognize that the what's here is absolutely bearable, and it's absolutely just a temporary manifestation. When I look this direction, the vase is there. When I look this direction, it's not. When I encounter a situation that causes me to feel trapped and helpless, this sensation is here. When I'm in any other situation, it's not. It's not making any more of it out of that.
I see.
So it's recognizing that we can be in this whole space around the sensation, and the sensation gets to be there. It doesn't have to go away. We don't have to break the vase or throw it in the garbage. It's fine. It's just recognizing that it's all happening in this one experience, and that is just perfectly fine whether it's there or not. It doesn't mean anything in that way. And so we have the one light way of working with it where we investigate, we talk to it, we see what it needs, we love it, we do all the reparenting and all of that. Another way of working with it is just to recognize that it is just sensation. And there is a story attached to it, which is making it seem more relevant than it really is. There's a story attached to the vase that I hate that goddamn vase. It is so ugly. Why is that color? Whatever it is. But that's all story. It's all, I hate that vase because I remember her ex-boyfriend gave her that vase and she still hangs on to it. And like you're creating a story around it. Now it's got this whole other meaning that it doesn't actually have. Same with the sensation. I hate this sensation because I felt it first when I was being spanked back then, whatever it was. You recognize what is happening right now. There is a vase in a room which is showing up with everything else. There is a sensation in the body which is showing up with everything else. All of the additional meaning that you're putting on it, all the thoughts that you're using while you talk about it, none of that is actually relevant to the experience of this moment. And so you can break it down to that so that if it's useful so that you're in a situation where all of a sudden your daughter's boyfriend shows up and you feel this momentary flare of lack of control, it can just be a vase in the room that you don't particularly care for, and it's there. And it's just, you don't feel that sense of trappedness around it. You don't have to interpret it in a certain way. You don't have to feel like I have to do something about this and I have to kick him out of the house. You don't feel any of that. It's just, oh, look at that. That's an interesting sensation. Can you just allow that to be there and let it play itself out?
Yes, with a qualification. Well,
Which,
the reason I say that is because Susanna and I both have to keep an eye on him because
yeah,
you know he has done things when he thought he had an opportunity to
mhm,
try something when he thought someone couldn't see him or wasn't looking. So
Yeah.
we do have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, sure.
But so yeah, I mean that's certainly doable. You know, with the caveat that at the same time have to keep an eye on him. And I hope that having to keep an eye on him doesn't kind of fan the flames, as it were.
Well, and that was going to be my question is, how does keeping an eye on somebody to make sure they don't steal or whatever they're doing, how does that correlate to being powerless or feeling lack of control?
I guess because there's this situation that requires constant attention when he's over, and if he could be made to go away, or we could convince Tex to stop seeing him, or any other number of possible ways that we could change the situation. I guess it seems to kind of serve as a reminder of the fact that nothing has been able to have been done about him.
So do you feel the discomfort, not just because there's a lack of control there, but because you're uncomfortable being on edge with him, having to be vigilant in your house, making sure that he's not doing something you don't want him to do?
Yeah, yeah, because as you know, as I've come to refer to it, his coming over means being on duty.
Yeah.
You know, you can't, like, you know, if I'm working on something back here, you know, whatever that might be, and it's something that, you know, may require a couple of hours to finish, well, that's got to stop. You know, I have to kind of hover around out there for the time he's here.
So you're not able to do the things that you want to do because you have to be there focusing your attention on him.
Right.
So it actually nicely brings us into a fifth fetter situation where you want to be doing something else that you're not able to do because the priority is you're watching him. So basically you have two options. You can be in this room doing what it is that you want to do and let him do whatever he might be doing that you don't want him to do. Or you can not do this thing that you want to do in this room and then be following him to make sure he doesn't do the thing that you don't want him to do.
Right.
So you're effectively making a decision here that is more of a priority. You don't want him to do that thing more
Right.
than you do want to do whatever it is in the room. But you are feeling a sense of resistance to the fact that I want to be in this room doing something in here and I can't do it because he's here.
Right. I want the freedom to be able to do whatever it is that I would normally be doing.
Yeah. So can you sit and feel that resistance? That feeling of, but I want to do this and I can't.
Right now, can I conjure it up?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Okay.
Right. So where is that being felt?
Just right in here. Chest, throat, part of the face.
So again, can you feel that? And you can notice that that sensation is basically like a vase in the room that you don't particularly care for.
Right, there's all of this open around it.
There is. So that's there. You don't actually have to act on it. But what would it prefer? What would it really, why is it a problem that you have to get up from your desk and go sit and be on duty and monitor wherever he is?
Why is that a problem?
No.
Well, it seems to stem from the fact that, once again, circumstances are imposed upon me which I didn't want, didn't ask for, and can't do anything to change.
Mm.
And so as a result of having these things thrust upon me, I have to do something other than whatever it is that I would prefer to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's back to the old, what we were just talking about, ability to control, ability to make some other choice.
Mm. When you feel that compassion for that person who is in this situation, it's an uncomfortable situation to be in. Having to do something you don't want to do, it's against your will. Feel that compassion arise.
Okay.
Now, why does it feel like you can't do anything about the situation? There's a feeling of being powerless, but just for the sake of investigation, let's
Okay.
take the opposite side of it. Why is it that it's your house? You have somebody who comes in and does something that you don't want them to do. I don't know what it is exactly. But why is it not okay for you to say, you're not allowed in this house?
Because the relationship between Susanna and I is based on being able to agree on something,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not how she wants to handle it.
Okay.
And I'm not about to force her to go along with whatever it is that I want. That just does not feel right. It doesn't feel like it just feels uncomfortable. It just feels it feels icky, to try to impose my will on someone else. So I have to abide with things as they are, because I'm not about to tell somebody, okay, this is what we're going to do, and you have to go along with this. I think this is the right thing to do, and sorry if you don't like it, but this is what we're doing. Just can't do that.
And again, just for the sake of this investigation, can you notice that uncomfortable, icky sensation? Where is that really coming from?
Where is that really coming from? You mean
Yeah,
where's the body?
well, both where is it in the body, and what I'm getting at is we can have a positive sensation about, this is just something that I feel very strongly morally about. I don't think it's right, and cut and dry with no sort of emotionality behind it. Or it can be coming from this place of trauma where you do not feel like it's okay for you to say that you aren't comfortable having this person in your home, and that is within your realm of um your healthy needs. Is it something where you don't feel like it's okay for you to express that need because somebody else disagrees with it?
Well, I can express the need. Where the line gets drawn is not imposing what I want on someone else and demanding that they go along with it, even though that's not what they want to do.
Mm. Now, I understand the not wanting to demand something on somebody else, but you feel like you're okay to express the fact that you're uncomfortable with him being there, and that. Okay, good.
Yeah, because I have.
Good. Good. Um, the issue of having to then deal with him, if you can't, if you're not comfortable not having him there, but you're also not comfortable having him there, we can still be in a situation where we can not be not be necessarily excited and happy to have him there and go on guard duty while he's there. But the resistance to it doesn't need to become a problematic thing. So
Okay.
so that's why I want you to get in touch with that sensation when it's there about now I have to get up from my room, stop what I'm doing, and go out and be with him. And notice, first of all, if there are stories about it that are coming up that are feeding it.
Hmm.
Are there, like poor me stories or so annoyed, here we go again stories? I really I really wanted to do this. Like I really wanted to get out of that room, scratch, scratch, scratch. Or, that I think the dog is very much helping us play this out. That there's this feeling of really wanting to do something, and then you're creating this story around it. But what's happening there is that there's a sensation that's showing up in the body. He's here, gotta stop what I'm doing and go. Sensation arises. Yeah, sure.
I knew you were
Scratch,
going to
scratch.
do this. Bye. Okay.
Scratch. So so he's here. He's here. You got to get up and go out and monitor play guard duty. A sensation comes up in the body. Are there any thoughts, stories about it that show up to accompany it?
It's hard to recall clearly sitting here now, but I think there are some. In fact, you described one of them. I wish I could remember what you said about. I can't recall what you said, but you did get pretty close to the mark with something you said regarding a possible story. So yeah, there is. I'm going to guess probably some mental imagery that pops up and some mental talk, but it seems like there are times when mental talk is not explicitly formed in words in complete sentences. It's not quite that distinct or clear, but it's still, there's some kind of form of mental talk going on about I wish he wasn't here. I don't want to have to do this. I wish she wasn't seeing him.
So notice, what benefit do those stories do? What benefit do those sayings bring to you?
I don't know that they have any benefit at all.
Yeah, so why are you using them?
Huh. That's a good question. Huh. It almost seems like grousing and grumbling about it is. Mental picture that came to mind was a voodoo doll and putting pins in it. Okay, I can't do anything about it. I can't say anything to him, but damn it, I can put needles in this doll.
Yeah, and what it's really doing is distracting you from feeling the sensations that are in the body.
Huh. So when these things come up, I need to really make it a point to pay attention to the body then.
You do. You
Okay.
do. And the irony is that that voodoo doll of going to thoughts about grousing about how all of that is reinforcing those sensations. What started as just a quick little flare, if you
Mm,
could just sit with it without all of the mental talk and even this kind of, as you put it, subtle half-formed thoughts about it, if you just be with the sensations, they're just there and they're fleeting and they're gone. If you keep saying those stories about it, each one of those stories provokes another fresh
right.
of it.
Just fanning the flames.
You are fanning the flames, exactly. So we just get right down to the sensations. And that's why I say just notice that even when they're there, it's just that vase in the room. Without the stories attached to it, it's just a vase. It's fine. It's not even a vase. It's just something in the visual field, you know?
Right.
It's not even a feeling of not wanting. It's just a physical sensation that arises. The whole not wanting, all of the aversion, all of that is a thought that we have about a sensation.
Hold on a minute.
Uh-huh.
Say that again?
Yeah. What we take as not wanting something, as aversion to something,
Uh-huh.
just a thought about a sensation that we have. The whole crux of just like when we do the first fetter and we know that we're looking for a self that doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
when we're doing the fourth and fifth fetter, looking for craving and aversion, wanting and not wanting, what we're looking for does not exist. There's no actual thing called aversion or craving. You're having sensations and you're having thoughts. And that is all that's happening. What you take to be aversion is just this feeling of that comes up in the body. And then you'll have some form of thoughts that are saying, I don't want this. I could be doing. But is that actually aversion? You have a thought about something that is grumbling about the way that things are. You have an image that something could be otherwise. You have the image that you could be sitting in that room for the rest of the night doing what you want to do. But instead, you have to get up and go out there and babysit. So you're now comparing what is actually happening, which is you getting up and going on guard duty, to the imaginary situation that could have been happening here. You're comparing the two, deciding, I would have preferred to sit in the room all night and not have to do that. And now I'm going to be grumpy about it. Now I'm going to tell myself the story that it could have been other than it actually is. But it couldn't because it's not.
Right.
And that is what we take to be aversion. It's a sensation in the body and then a whole bunch of stories that come out about it because we think something could be other than it is, but it's not. And the flip side of this situation is that you're still in that moment choosing that you would rather babysit than be in the room and allow him to do whatever he does. Because you do have that choice, right? It feels like there's
Right.
no control, but technically you do have the option of sitting in that room while he's there doing whatever he's doing.
Right.
So you have the power in that situation to make the choice. And you're making the choice that you would rather monitor him to make sure he doesn't do the thing that you don't want him to do instead of doing what you actually want to do.
I see. Hmm. Okay. You're right.
Right. So even in that moment, when you're telling yourself the story, you actually have the option and you're choosing the one which you prefer in that situation.
I don't disagree with that at all.
It's not like Suzanne is saying, I want him to be in the house, but every time he comes, you have to be on guard duty and I'm just going to go, help.
Right. Yeah, she's not.
You're making that choice yourself, taking it upon yourself that this is your duty and you prefer being on that duty. to just letting him do whatever that thing is that he's going to do.
Well, it's kind of it's not much of a choice at all. I can do other things that I want or need to do, and sometimes things happen, and Susanna is not able to, like if she's having to, you know, work comes up for her a lot. Okay, so now she's distracted with, you know, a work situation. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, her Texas boyfriend, is, you know, trying to get his hand down her pants.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really feel like much of an option.
No. But you've made your choice. You've decided that that is more important to you than the work that you're doing.
Okay, well, when you phrase it like that, more important to you. Okay,
Yeah. We can't always have the thing that we think we want most, but you can in any situation choose effectively between the thing that you want least, right? So you want his hand down her pants less than you want to be doing what you're doing.
yeah, yeah,
So there you have it. So that feeling of powerlessness isn't really a true feeling either. The
yeah, you're
sensation
right.
may arise, but it's not really true.
Boy, it's really interesting how it gets cast as that when that's really not, that's not what is actually happening in reality.
No.
But that, yet that's, I mean, because if we put someone else in that situation, which there are plenty of parents all around the world who
Yeah.
probably find themselves in similar situations, and I'm pretty sure that a certain percentage of them don't find themselves feeling helpless, powerless. Like, I have to do this and I don't have an option.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming from your particular trauma, your particular starting point. It's coming from the resistance that happens in the moment, thinking, I would like to be doing my work. I'd like to be doing what this is. And now I have to be doing something else. But the fact is that you care more about that other thing than you
Right,
do. Otherwise, you would be one of the parents who's just like, yeah, enjoy yourselves. I'm just going to do my work. But that's not who you are.
right.
So there you go. There's no problem with that. It's just recognizing what the actual motivations are, that you are doing what you want to do in that situation.
Well, you managed to successfully completely reframe that.
That's why I'm here.
And that's not going to be easily forgotten.
Good. And we do this with everything. I mean, it's one really good example of it, but we do this absolutely all the time. There
Hmm.
are so many times that we will feel like, oh, I'm trapped in this situation. I can't do anything else. But you will find, if you really look at it, that you are probably making a decision between two things and saying that actually, even though I think I would really like to do this other thing, this one does feel to me to be more important right now. And so I'm choosing it. Now we can look into why it feels more important. Now, maybe for you or for somebody else, it might be that it feels more important because, depending on what the thing is, if it feels like there's a sense of obligation that, I can't let other people down, well, maybe that's something that you need to look into then. Your feelings of ownership of other people's experiences or something like that, that might be something you need to look into. If it's something where uh I'm drawing a blank. But there are, millions of options here, but none of
Right.
which come to mind at the moment. But where you can look into, if it's coming out of a base of your own trauma, basically, then we need to look into why you're making that decision. If it's something where you're putting other people first all the time, is it truly out of altruism that you really, feel like this is absolutely coming from the bottom of your heart and this is just absolutely what you want to do? Or is it because you feel like there's some sense of duty that you're not allowed to take time off for yourself or do things for yourself or something like that? Or is it um yeah, I don't know. You get the gist, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just looking into the motivation of why that or whatever other problem seems to be the one which, if you're not doing something that you want to do because you feel like it's more important to do something else, just look into the motivations of that something else that you ostensibly don't want to do, and yet feel like you're drawn to doing it because it's more important in some way. Is that coming because you really truly have no hooks into it, or is it a motivation because there's a real discomfort if you don't do it? And that's really what we're looking into, is you sitting in the room working while he's out there potentially doing whatever he's doing is uncomfortable for you in a way because you're picturing, any ramifications that come out of that. There's something there. If
Right.
if you are not doing what you want to do in that room, because that's maybe a little bit trickier of an example, but because you feel like there's a discomfort in you if you don't do it. Now, in that case, I think it's more like you're trying to protect her from the sounds of it, which is,
Yes.
ostensibly commendable. If it's something where, I'm trying to think of another situation that you might have brought up in the past. Um,
Oh, there's always that sense of obligation of having to do things.
Yeah, yeah. Even I was thinking like the dishwasher, right? Like emptying the dishwasher. Like if you're stopping working to go empty the dishwasher because nobody else is doing it, there's something in you that still feels like you don't want to be doing that. You would rather be working in the room, but something in you feels uncomfortable if you don't take that upon yourself and do that thing that nobody else is doing. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I
then we
do.
can look into, why do you feel uncomfortable leaving the dishwasher unemptied or leaving it for somebody else, or doing, why do you feel uncomfortable doing the work that you're doing now on the computer and then taking care of that or having somebody else take care of that at another time? We go underneath it and find out why it is that you're making that choice, instead of just grumbling about it and saying, well, somebody else should have done it. I do it all the time. It's okay. Well, why do I feel the need to do it right now? And you know, go at it from that angle.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's say the overall takeaway there is just grumbling bad, feeling good.
So let me make sure I got that completely.
Yeah,
So if I'm doing something that I'm telling myself I don't want to be doing, would rather be doing something else, I need to look into why am I going ahead and doing this thing, even though there's appears to be all of this resistance to it.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Is that coming from something else that feels even more uncomfortable if you don't do that thing that you supposedly don't want to do, than if you were doing the thing that you do want to do and leaving that thing undone? That was a lot of things and a lot of feelings. Did you follow that?
Yeah, I did. It's just there was a moment of clarity, I guess, in that, and saying it out loud to me anyway is obvious, knowing what I know about myself.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of surprised I didn't connect the dots sooner. That, and I've told you about this before, that as a kid, one of my ways of dealing with the way things were in the house was that my room was meticulous,
Oh,
immaculate.
yeah.
Everything was just spotless and had its place and what have you. And so there's still that tendency, very strong tendency towards trying to keep things clean, neat, organized, what have you, because that somehow felt like there was something in my environment that was manageable and didn't feel like what was going on out in the rest of the house.
Yeah. 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 So now if you have that thing come up and you'd rather be doing something else, but still feel motivated to clean, notice what's underneath that motivation.
Okay.
What purpose is that serving? If you think you would rather be playing guitar right now, but you're cleaning the room instead, see why you're making that choice.
Yeah. So see what's going on that is creating the urge to try to manage my environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there may be something going on that I'm not seeing. Okay.
And feel the discomfort in the body. Largely, it comes back to coming into the body. Because
Okay.
if there is something going on in the environment that you are trying to manage, that you're uncomfortable with, you are feeling that in the body. There is something happening, even if you're not overtly aware of it in the moment, it's there. And just coming down to, oh, there is some low level feeling of that's happening somewhere in there, just feeling where that is, maybe asking into it, maybe just allowing it to be there without having to put a lot of times we do still feel like sensations in the body that are on the surface uncomfortable. It's just some that's happening, and we don't always know where it's coming from or why. Sometimes it genuinely just needs to be felt, seen, allowed to be there, and not deflected from by any other means that we use or fed into, because if we feel like there's something going on in the body, we don't really notice it, but it gives us that feeling like we're on edge. We're going to start looking for reasons why we feel uncomfortable. And we're going to come up with, oh, it's because so and so isn't doing this. It's because this is happening instead. It's because I really wanted to do this, but now I can't. And there are so many stories that we will latch onto and cover up on that feeling that creates this whole narrative around it without ever coming down to the fact that there's just some uncomfortable feeling in the body that we're not feeling.
So you're saying all of this storytelling is generated in an attempt to avoid or deflect from what's being felt in the body.
Yeah, and sometimes just to put a name on it, like to try to point a finger at it, like without thinking about, because we might not be aware of the sensation itself. We
Hmm.
might just feel this something is wrong. Something is uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. And then it's like the mind is basically scanning for anything which could be the culprit here. And it's
Uh,
just like that thing. That,
yeah, it'll latch on to anything in order to have an explanation for it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen myself do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think I told you the story about the truck where I noticed that happening. I was parked at an intersection and like there had been this like fluttering, uncomfortable sensation in the gut for a little while and just watching that. And then all of a sudden this old beat up, I don't know what kind of a truck it was. It wasn't like a like a regular civilian truck. It was like some sort of a more you know, had some sort of a utility kind of a truck to it, like it was
Mhm.
clearly made for something, but I couldn't really determine what it was. It was very old, very beat up, and very loud. And it was coming the other direction. And as it came through, the thought came up like, hate those kind of trucks or something. And it was like, what the hell is that? Like, I've never seen this kind of truck before. It was whatever. And it's like clearly just feeling this sensation. And it's just like that truck's fault, like it's like, this is so silly. And just like completely irrelevant. But like, oh, that's what it is. And so, but we do that sort of thing all the time, and it's utterly absurd. Um, I was actually just like I've been working with somebody, and they were just saying that recently they've had for years a feeling of anxiety that's just like this persistent anxiety. And they've used, all sorts of means to try to distract from it for, most of their life. And then has had recently a change of perspective where everything is kind of like, they're really happy and like things have changed, but they realize the sensation is still there. They're just a very energetic person. So they're filled with this like constant, woo woo kind of energy, But in the
Right.
past, that was being labeled as anxiety and
Huh.
discomfort, and you have to do everything to not feel it and to numb yourself. And now it's just like, got energy. Let's go exercise and let's go do these things. And it's just being and it's just a different framing of the same thing that has been happening in the body for decades. But because
Oh.
there were negative, depressed, anxious thoughts that were there, that sensation had the overlay or the projection onto it of anxiety and sadness and misery and all that stuff. And then when we stop having all of the negative self-hating thoughts and all of that stuff. We have this more open perspective. All of a sudden, that same sensation just gets seen in a different color with a different projection.
So, in order to really try to make this fully applicable, something that I can really work with in any situation. So let's say something comes up and Susanna says she wants to, I'm just going to be really vague in general because
Yeah.
I'm just making this up.
Sure.
She wants to do X and I'm really uncomfortable with that idea. And it'd be really easy to find an explanation like that and do what you're just describing. So in that situation, what needs to happen is the attention needs to immediately move to what's happening in the body.
Yeah.
And then understand, look for, and actually experientially get, by way of actually watching it happen, that there's a sensation there. And then after a period of time, not very long, that sensation will be gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all it comes down to. It all hinges on some kind of sensation that is provoked by what someone else says they want to do, or
Yep.
okay.
Yeah. And notice if there are any thoughts that are showing up along with it, aside from it. We're not buying into them. We're not playing with them. We're not taking them as truth. We're just recognizing that even when you are putting all of your attention on the sensation, other things are probably going to be trying to pop in and either deflect you from just feeling the sensation or putting some sort of meaning on it or blame casting on it or, creating the whole narrative that you've already always been a part of. So just keep coming back to the sensation and just note that they're there and let them go. We're not picking anything up. We're not digging our hooks into them and saying, "Yep, that one's the one we're going with today." It's just sensation.
And if I heard you correctly earlier, these sensations have a strong tendency to result from trauma from earlier times in life.
Often, yeah. Yeah, it's something where again, mostly they're like a defense mechanism to I liken them to a smoke alarm. They went off as a child, something goes off, it warns you away from that situation, but then it kind of gets stuck. It starts getting triggered all the time. It's not really being utilized for what it's meant to be. It's just seen as like, oh no, I'm feeling that sensation again. There must be fire here. I don't even know what the fire is, but there's something wrong.
Okay.
Um, so we're just noticing, oh, no, it's just a sound. It's just a beeping fire alarm. It's okay. And we can just allow it for the battery to die out and like Pernilla always says, it really does, the sensations die in like 7 to 11 seconds. Like if we're not re-provoking them with more thought, they
Mm-hmm.
are fast arising and fast diminishing.
I've
It's
heard that before.
yeah, well, it's primarily it's a response from it's a biological response. You get the flood of adrenaline, the flood of different hormones and things that shoot off in the body, and then they're out of the system if you're not constantly reprovoking them with a new hit that's saying, "Oh, danger still here, danger still here, danger still here."
Right.
They just go.
Okay. And I know that's true because I've observed it before, but it's I don't remember to do it with any kind of consistency.
Yeah,
So
you will.
yeah, I was going to say now that we've talked about this and the attention has been so thoroughly focused on this,
Yeah.
it's something that will be more likely to happen.
Yeah.
So the other side of all of the inquiry is the more non-dual stuff.
Hmm.
And you had said something to me in an email a week or so ago, and I wish it's funny that I can't remember this because you
Uh,
said something to me about. Well, I can kind of remember it. Here's what's. It made me think about how you said that sometimes not being able to remember something is a way of the mind trying to avoid
hmm.
having to look at this stuff. Because in an email you said something about note what it actually is that feels like it can do. It was something about doing inquiry that it actually feels like it can
Hmm.
ask the questions to do this inquiry. I can't recall specifically, but what I saw there was take off the last part of that sentence that was about the inquiry, and you could just turn it into note what it actually is that feels like it can do X.
Yeah.
Because something about the way you phrased that sentence really just kind of, so to speak, kind of grabbed me by the collars. It really, it said it in such a way that it really, I don't know, it just seemed to really hone in on exactly what it is that needs to happen there. And so I was trying to remember to ask that sentence. I had so much difficulty trying to remember exactly how you wrote that, how you said that. I had it printed out and left it around. I put it in the notepad on my phone. I was doing
Yeah.
all these things to remember it, but I still couldn't freaking remember it.
So funny. That is so funny.
It was like there's, like you'd said that one time, some time ago, that there's this, sometimes that resistance is, the way mind's way of trying to avoid these things.
Yeah.
But the question in all of that is, I had this. I wish I'd written it down. Let me see if I can get this. In doing that kind of inquiry, is it sufficient to just simply ask that question, note what it actually is that thinks it can do X, and then see that there's not anyone there that can do X? Is that sufficient unto itself?
Yes and no, depending on what you mean by seeing that there's no one there. It's the inquiry process of, you know, like I recommend breaking everything down into the five senses.
Right?
So as long as what you mean by seeing that there's no one there, it's actively investigating. Like in this moment, it feels like I can pick up this pen. Uh, so in that moment, notice, like, investigate the five senses. What does it feel like I can go and pick up this pen? Is there a physical sensation that is telling me, like, I can move the arm out to do this? If so, what is it that feels like there is a sense of agency that I know how to move that arm, that I know how to pinch and grip the pen with my fingers? That is there something deeper in the core of the body that feels like there's a sense of agency, that there's a muscular contraction, that there's something that seems to be the core of me that is deriving this behavior to do this? Then looking, and digging into all the physical sensations. If it feels like there's a physical intensity behind the eyes that's seeing the pen and focusing in a way like that's the object of the action, and I'm going to focus on it. And it's being really meticulous about all of the physical sensations that go into it. Likewise, the visual field. What is happening in the external visual field or the mental visual field where you seem to be having this sense of it? Are you seeing an image of what it's going to be like when you pick up the pen? Are you seeing the images of the body and the face? Are you seeing, what is actually happening that's giving you the indication that I am making the choice to do this? Your auditory field. Are you hearing something in the external environment? Maybe not, but are you hearing some internal voice of, oh, I've got to write this down and I'm going to, however it's showing up? We just want to be very meticulous about everything in our experience that gives us the impression that I could actually make the choice to reach out right now and grab this. And if it feels like there's a core, that there's like either a homunculus or a feeling of, that solidification somewhere in here, which is the thing which can make a choice and do anything. We investigate that in all of its parts, which again are largely, for most of us, physical. It's largely a sense of physical contractions, tension, buzzing, a lot of stuff around the eyes or in the head, some stuff maybe in the jaw, the neck, the chest, sometimes the belly. Super common that it's going to be something through there that's a sense of tension, maybe even the back, sense of tension that's being like, this is me, this has control, this is how I am going about moving through life, making decisions and having expressing my agency. Feel into every aspect of that.
Okay. Well, I can see that frequently, probably a greater percentage of the time, I'm not being meticulous enough. So that's helpful. I understand that. There are times when I am meticulous enough and where it's not really running into a wall. I don't know how to say it, express what I'm trying to get across here, but there are times when it'd probably be more meticulous, but I'm fairly meticulous in that, here's a common one. This is one that comes up a lot. Going to do something and there's a sense in the body and maybe some kind of words around it, like need to do X. Mm-hmm. And then the visual field. And the bigger part of, if not almost, if not entirely, what creates that sense of some sort of agent who can act is the marriage of the visual field and the sense in the body. Mm. I mean, there are other things going on, but what will seem to be kind of a almost, I can't quite find the right word for it, but those two things tied together are taken as a whole.
Yeah.
Even though I know they're not, they're taken as a whole, and that creates that sense of someone who can do something. Just those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you notice that those two things are combining to make it, do they break apart for a bit so that you no longer feel that those two created a sense of agency? That now there's actually just sensation in the body and just a visual field, and also the action that's happening doing something, but that they're not necessarily interrelated?
I don't know. I think I get so hung up on the fact that I'm noticing that those two things were taken as one whole. That kind of captures the attention. And so what follows isn't really seen.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So try to stay with that and just recognize, okay, here's sensation. And again, the more meticulous the more meticulous you are, the easier this is to kind of break apart. But noticing the sensations exactly where they are that are contributing to this. Notice the parts of the visual image that are relevant. Also, is there physical sensation around the eyes, which is making the visual field seem even more real and relevant, right? Does the movement of the eyes and the feeling of the musculature around the eyes make it feel as though you are directing your gaze and intentionally moving it around the room to do the thing that you are going to do?
wow, okay. Boy, so that really is a pretty heavy duty practice in and of itself, because it's not enough to just get fairly meticulous. It's something that has to always be dug into deeper until there's nothing else to break apart or I can't think of the word. I'll just have to leave it there. It cannot be further broken down.
Effectively, yeah. At least to a, I'm not going to say there's probably always a way to break it down even further, but to the point where you really get the sense that the visual field is just a raw visual experience, and the parts of the body, the parts of the felt sensation in the body, which are correlating to that, are themselves just felt sensations in the body that have no direct correlation with the visual field itself. So if you move your eyes around the room right now, you can feel the physical musculature of the eyes. You can feel the pressure of the eyes behind the eyelids. You
Yeah.
feel as they they're contracted and squeezed and relaxed to focus on things at different distances. You can feel all of that, but the visual field itself is not part of that. Those are two distinct senses.
Huh. Yeah, you're right. Boy, that's all that has. I've never noticed that before. That's always been overlooked.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
And the correlation of the two makes it feel like I am choosing where to look, I am moving, I am creating this visual appearance, but they are two distinct physical sensations that are happening.
Right. Wow. Okay.
And so when you start to break those apart, now the feeling of agency that I am moving around the room is just noticing, okay, there's physical sensation of eyes, there's visual field which keeps changing. Those
Hmm.
two are separate, not directly correlated in this way. And then if it feels like there's something here which is now controlling the eyes and saying, okay, but I am moving, I'm creating this motion. Well, what is giving me the inclination that I am creating this motion? Do you have anything in, again, any of those five sense fields, which is making you feel like you can choose which direction the eyes are going and when? Do you have a thought ahead of time that now I'm going to move them to the right and now I'm going to move them up 10 degrees and now I'm going to move them over to the side for
No,
20
it just
seconds?
happens.
And it's breaking apart the experience into what is actually happening.
I mean, the sense that there's someone there that is doing that, that's initiating those actions, is simply just a thought. Actually, a thought in the form of a belief. It's an assumption.
Yeah. And it actually happens kind of after the fact, right? Like the eyes
Yeah.
are moving and there's sort of credit being taken afterwards that I did that, but you can't actually tell where they're going to go before they go.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Even if I say right now that in the next 30 seconds at some point, I'm going to move my eyes and look at that pen that's down there. I have no idea
When you're
when that
actually
is
going to
going
do
to
it.
happen or how to even make that happen. I don't, there's nothing here that knows how to actually move the eyes and focus the eyes and all of that. Like it's just it's outside the realm of whatever this is that seems to know something. That thing that thinks it knows that I am moving my eyes to look at a pen does not know how to actually perform the action.
Wow.
It's something that takes credit after the fact.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Well, that's given me a lot to work with.
This has been a good session.
Yes, it has. It has. Wow. Okay. I'm going to have to make it a point to come back and rewatch this. I mean, because
Yeah.
I recall it now, and I'll be working with it starting the minute I get up to move on to do other things. But a day or two goes by, and details will become foggy.
Yeah.
So
I think we have gone through a lot today. So
yeah, we have. It's been a pretty dense session. So
yeah. Yeah.
all
Thank
right.
you. It's been a real pleasure. It's been great.
Yes, I feel the same. It has been tremendous. As
Excellent.
always, I can't thank you enough.
Seriously. I am so happy to do this. And I am so happy to see, people have really, really, really getting a lot out of this. And so I'm
Yeah,
so thankful for you for doing it because it's really resonating with people.
and I'm glad to see that. I really am because I am very disinclined to do things in a public way. I guess my tendency is to be very private in many ways.
Mhm.
And to the point that it seems like it's getting better with time, but for a while there was, and I didn't realize it until just yesterday or earlier today, that there was kind of a sense of being exposed or vulnerable that came along with it because of the fact that it's so very public.
It is.
So, but the fact that other people are getting something from it, that it's helping other people, it renders that sort of mood. It's like, yeah, you know what? It's not really an issue.
Thank you
This
for
means something to people.
it does. Yeah, thank you for working through that discomfort because it truly does. Yeah, it really does help people.
Yeah,
The,
I mean, if only one person finds that their life has been changed for the better, really truly changed for the better, then that little bit of awkwardness and discomfort was worth every bit of it.
amazing. And it's always good to work with that awkwardness and discomfort too.
Well, once I realized what it was,
Yeah.
I didn't realize what it was. Once it may be incomplete in terms of the way we do things, but just to be able to label it and realize, oh, that's feeling vulnerable and exposed. Well, you're not really vulnerable and exposed. Okay, all right.
Done.
Yeah, it really is. It was like it was sort of that's sort of how it went.
That's amazing. And we can
So
always come, if it comes back in different ways, we can always work with it more too.
yeah, well, if it continues to rear its head, then I'll definitely say something about it.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, you can count on it.
All right, good.
I'm not going to let that. I'm not going to let that go unaddressed.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. Have
Well,
a
same.
have a great couple weeks, and yeah, I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Okay. See you in 2 Fridays.
Sounds good. Take care. Bye.